Hello and welcome to Thursday Night Flight, a Fox 43 special about the Eagles and their strong connections to our area. Yes, I know, nothing special about the way they've played so far in 2020. Let's face it, the NFC East is awful. Only 5 wins combined for all 4 teams. And that means you don't have to fly very high to win this division if you are the Eagles. We're not here to talk wins and losses. We're here to introduce you to some former players that are doing great things right here in our community. Guys like former York Catholic and Shippensburg University star Ron Johnson, who played with the Birds in the early 2000s. He's spending his time training the next group of standout athletes. Tom Gerhardt, another former Eagle, caught up to Tom to talk about his annual memorabilia auction that he does in memory of his Eagles mom, who passed away from cancer in the late 90s. And then there's Barry the Hatchet, self-described Eagles super fan. Who can argue with that? He takes us into his locker room full of green and white. We have our usual cast of characters helping out with our show. Barry may steal the show this evening. But speaking of characters, it's time to check in with one of our characters in the sports department, Andrew Callista. He's spending some time in the big city tonight. Andrew, live in Philadelphia, right across from Lincoln Financial Field. We know it's a limited crowd at the game and at restaurants. Somehow you always seem to get access, Andrew.
Hey, boss, the cold cracker comes to the big city, and yes, I had some great wings at Xfinity Live earlier today. I had the whole place to myself. I call that celebrity status. Lindsey Barnes said I just stink and cleared the place out. Well, right now it is filling up with fans coming in here. Nobody's leaving. They are filling up with liquid courage, and the Eagles may be down right now, but hey, this is still a prime time game to be excited for. It's a Thursday night, 8 p.m. kick. Who cares about the records? The fans were filling in here at around 4:30. Just 7,500 people in the link for this NFC East matchup. It's critical for the Birds because the division is still there for their taking. They are primed and ready to go, anxious to be in that stadium, no matter if it's the first game they see this year or if they were here last week. They want to make their voices heard and make this place feel like a normal Philadelphia night.
And I didn't think I was going to be able to see him in person at all. So I was pumped when they found out that we were going to be able to go into the stadium. Did whatever I could to find tickets and, made some calls, got some friends to hook me up and made it happen. But I want to get in there, feel out the energy, see what it's going to be like, hopefully bring some extra energy for the Eagles, so see them win.
I am ready to go in there, ready to make some noise. 5,000 is going to feel like 65,000. We're going to make a lot of noise. Giants are coming down here for nothing. They stink. They're a bunch of bums. Those dorks from New York can get back up the turnpike after we kick their rear ends. That's why I'm excited.
I'm ready to go. Like, I hate New York. I don't care what New York thing comes here. I don't even like New York style delis out here. We're ready to go in there, sound like it's 70,000 people, and like beat the crap out of them.
You think they are fired up? You bet. Do you expect anything else? Of course we have an Eagles chant here, Todd. You know they're fired up here at Xfinity Live. And everyone told me, though, hey, they better come out and play or the Boo Birds will be out in full force in the link.
All right, thanks a lot, Andrew. Why do I always worry about him when he's in Philadelphia? He can handle himself. Of course, the coronavirus has completely turned the sports world upside down. It's brought many changes for Eagles fans, too. Fox 43's Samantha Galvez met a family that hasn't missed attending a home opener in decades. She tells us how they adapted this season to enjoy the game.
If you ask this father-daughter duo just how much they love the Philadelphia Eagles.
We watch every single game, every Sunday, Saturday, Monday, Thursday, whatever they're playing, it is on our television.
Well, I'm third generation. My grandfather was an Eagles fan. My father was an Eagles fan.
Which would make his daughter Shannon the fourth generation. Dad's a 30-year season ticket holder. Shannon attended her first game at just 7 months old.
We would bundle her up. We'd sit there in the rain and the snow. And it was funny back at the vet. She was like a mini celebrity. She would ride up to the 700 level on my shoulders, and 200 guys would wait for her to high five her on the way up the ramp to the 700 level every single Sunday. It was awesome.
That was pre-COVID. You may have noticed Dad and Shannon are on this Zoom interview separately, but that's not because of social distancing. Several years ago, Shannon moved down south to Savannah, Georgia.
Even with me being so far away, I still fly up every home opener. We make a big deal out of it. We do not sell the tickets. It is just me and my dad and our friends and our family that go.
In fact, the pair haven't missed a home opener in person since 1993, and they don't consider this year to be a break in their tradition.
They didn't have one this year, so I flew to Savannah And so we maintained our opening day tradition, but I flew to Savannah and we watched it on TV at Shannon's house.
And despite the Birds' rough start this season, these fans understand to appreciate the good times, you have to get through the bad.
They could play a little better here and there. But, the truth is, if it was easy to be an Eagles fan, everyone would be one.
We're still running on the high from winning the Super Bowl against the Patriots.
Now that 5,000 fans are allowed back in the stadium based on a lottery system, Dad hopes they will get picked to attend at least one game this season. Samantha Galvez, Fox 43 Sports.
All right, thanks a lot, Samantha. When Thursday Night Flight returns, a former Eagle who calls York County home has some fond memories of the Birds beating the G-Men.
E-A-G-L-E-S Eagles! Yeah, baby!
And if you get the chance to meet this Eagles super fan, you will never forget it. Grace Griffin introduces us to Barry the Hatchet, why he just can't stop rooting for his beloved Birds, coming up when our Thursday Night Flight continues. We are back on our Thursday Night Flight. From York Catholic to the Philadelphia Eagles, Ron Johnson is no stranger to wearing the green on the gridiron. His role now is to help others reach their full potential, but tonight's game has a special meaning for the former Eagle.
Ron Johnson's day starts before most as a director of athlete performance at S3 Performance Training in York.
Working with athletes Division 1, 2, 3, that compete at the highest levels, all the way down to our youngest athletes might be 10 years old.
His days are long, but if there's anyone who knows the importance of being at their best, it's him.
There's so much more to this. There's so much more of a science to sports performance training.
The former York Catholic standout and Shippensburg Hall of Famer grew up a fan of the guys in green.
Favorite team was the Eagles. I would always watch Reggie White, Randall Cunningham, Andre Waters, all the top stars, the Hall of Famers for the Eagles.
So when his time with the Raiders ended, it was time to live his dream, but it wasn't easy.
After a while, after a few days, just pushing myself, being in camp, playing against some of the guys that I watched on TV, I knew that I could do it as well, and I had a lot of confidence in myself. After 4 weeks of the practice squad and pushing myself every day, I knew that I wanted to be on the other side of the ball and not on the scout team. I worked so hard throughout life to make it to that level, and I just wanted to compete and play on Sundays.
And whenever it's an Eagles versus Giants matchup like this week, it usually brings a smile to his face.
It's a special game to watch for me because that was my first active game in 2003. The Miracle at the Meadowlands #2, it's called. Being a part of punt return, I'd like to say I held my block for 2 or 3 seconds, and we just let Westbrook do the rest. If you look at YouTube, you might be able to see the back of my helmet, but I was trying to keep up with Westbrook as fast as I could. But just running down the field, hearing the roar of the crowd, being able to celebrate in the end zone, it just gives me the chills, and it's emotional because my parents and my family were in the stands.
Unfortunately for Johnson, a career-ending back injury sidelined him at the end of the 2004 season. But it hasn't kept him away from football. He's currently the defensive line coach at Red Lion. We'll have much more with Coach Johnson coming up this Sunday during our Sunday Sports Frenzy.
Thanks, Alex. You know, the Eagles logo to this next guy, it's one of the most beautiful things in the world. He's a Berks County Eagles super fan, and he's featured in a documentary called Maybe Next Year, which will be released on DVDs and streaming websites November 10th. Fox 43's Grace Griffin introduces us to Barry the Hatchet Vagnoni and gives us a tour of his very own Eagles locker room.
I'm coming. Hey, welcome to the Philadelphia Eagles locker room. Come on in.
He may be small in stature, but Barry the Hatchet's love for the Birds is as huge as it gets. A 2,000 square foot extension to the back of his home of everything and anything Philadelphia Eagles.
Everything back there is autographed.
From the floor.
This is actual turf from the Veterans Stadium.
To the ceiling and even the bathrooms.
And then over here is the cheerleaders. That's the ladies.
We're not sure what's greater, the Hatchet's fandom for Philly or his loathing of the Dallas Cowboys.
And I always tell my guests, shoot for the stars. Goodbye, Dallas. We hand out season passes, and the rules on the back, the rules are only Philadelphia Eagles fans allowed. You must wear Eagles gear, no exceptions.
On a non-pandemic year, the locker room would be flooded with fans, 100 people and counting. But this year, his attorney and doctors said,
Barry, You don't want to do it.
Since we can't be here on game day because of COVID, we're going to have the one and only Barry the Hatchet Vagnoni walk us through what game day would look and feel like.
And I hit the famous song, and I say, everybody sing along with the hatchet. Eagles fly on the road to victory. E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles! Yeah, baby! That's where the passion came from my dad, because he loved the Philadelphia Eagles. He wasn't over the top like I am. I've really grown into a cuckoo. I have the energy of a 16-year-old. I'm running around the room. I'm dancing with the people. Speaking of cuckoos, there's my Eagles cuckoo clock going off right up there on the wall. Cuckoo, cuckoo.
There are 16 TVs total in the room, and Barry won't allow any of them to be changed on game day.
A couple of my friends said, well, why can't you put one or two of the TVs so we can see the scores for our fantasy? I said, you want a fantasy, stay home. All Eagles, all the time.
The Birds may be off to a rough start this season, but the Hatchet has hope.
I want you to hold me to this. At the end of the year, the Eagles will be the last one standing, and we will win the division. And once we get to the playoffs, anything's possible.
In Exeter Township, Berks County.
I'm living the dream. I'm living the dream, Grace.
I'm Grace Griffithson, Fox 43 News.
Thanks, Grace, and thanks, Barry. Never forget, fan is short for fanatic. Can you imagine seeing Barry at Eagles training camp in Hershey? Used to be their summer destination decades ago. Alex Cawley gives us a retro look at what it was like to have the Birds train in Chocolatetown. And they're banged up right now, but former Penn State stars Saquon Barkley and Miles Sanders are top-notch pros for the Giants and Eagles. We get an expert's opinion on why they've made a smooth transition to the pros when our Thursday night flight continues. Man, I think I have chills watching that. Saquon Barkley and Miles Sanders, so much fun to watch at Penn State. Such a shame they're both injured for tonight's game at the Link. The lucky guy that was able to call play-by-play for both when they were in the blue and white is the voice of the Nittany Lions, Steve Jones. And I had a chance to ask Steve to compare and contrast the two players, and he's not surprised that both have become excellent pros.
No surprise in either one, because they both have the right attitude for the NFL. So they both have the number one thing, they have talent. So they're great, talented running backs. Number two, they have a great attitude. And they also are two individuals that want to be better. Saquon's very much a perfectionist. He gets very upset at himself if he misses even the smallest assignment. And I think that rubbed off on Miles as well. He's become far more precise in his game.
Yeah, what a treat to be able to call those games. Would have been fun to see them on the field tonight. We heard from Steve. Time to go back near the stadium to hear from some of the Eagles faithful. Our very own Lindsey Barna, live in Philadelphia. Eagles fans are famous for their brutal honesty, Lindsey. I'm sure they were willing to debate which Penn State guy they'd rather have in their backfield.
I think I should just laugh at that. Brutal is an underestimate. It doesn't matter that Miles Sanders and Saquon Barkley were former Nittany Lions players, because some Penn State fans here know who they're rooting for, and there might be a few exceptions. Well, there's fantasy football.
Well, no. I'm sorry. When he plays the Dallas Cowboys, then Saquon, we want him to get 200 yards every time against the Cowboys. It's tough to root against Saquon Barkley, but he's a Giant, so now I have to root against him. But it's tough that they're both actually hurt. So our guy's coming back this year, so that's what we have to root for.
I mean, obviously Saquon, just because, he's hurt right now, obviously, but I think overall he's more talented, he's better. Faster, more shifty and quicker, so I think overall he's definitely better.
It didn't matter who I spoke to, fans saying true to their team. even if they are former Penn Staters. A shame both are inactive playing in their home state. And all I can say tonight is so gorgeous. Meteorologist Jessica Pash, what could the 7,500 fans expect tonight right behind me here in the stadium?
Hey there, everyone. Yeah, it should be a great night for football out there tonight. Temperatures are pretty mild. The one concern will likely be a little bit of dense fog developing later this evening. But for right now, it is clear as can be across the region. Looking back on earlier this morning, we had to deal with some really dense fog through the early part of the day, but things cleared up. The skies are basically clear out there right now. Philadelphia, mid-70s across the region right now. Temperatures are going to be dropping as we push through the game, but again, it still should be a great one out there for the Giants versus the Eagles. Temperatures at kickoff in the low 70s, halftime dropping off into the mid 60s, and then a little bit of fog developing likely towards the end of the fourth quarter. Todd.
All right, thanks, Jess. Now, the Eagles are always hoping Mother Nature is on their side, but here in the mid-state, that's not always the case. Philly knows this all too well, having held their camp in the sweetest smelling place on earth for a stretch decades ago. Our own Alex Cawley dives deep, maybe a little too deep, into the archives.
After taking their training camp out of state for 5 years, the Philadelphia Eagles return to the state of Pennsylvania for camp, calling Hershey their summer home from 1951 to 1967.
Yes, and unlike your camps today, the access to the players seemed endless.
Every morning they'd walk to the stadium and kids would ask if they could carry their helmets, and they would always sign autographs. Their practices back then were open, so anybody could go and watch.
It would even lead to some once-in-a-lifetime opportunities for some area youngsters.
They had a water boy competition where kids between, I think, 8 and 12 could practice throwing and catching balls, and whoever did the best job got to sit with the team during their preseason game. So it was a really big deal. I'm sure you've heard of Ray Dittinger, who's a sportscaster for the Eagles. He and his family used to travel to Hershey every summer just to come and see Eagles training camp. And he actually got to carry Tommy McDonald's helmet once when he was walking between the community building and the stadium.
And it wasn't just at Hershey Park Stadium where people could connect. The team stayed in the community building and were fixtures around town during the summer.
So the community building had rooms that you could stay in like a hotel, and it also had a gymnasium, a library, game rooms, a bowling alley, a theater. So it had a lot going on. It was really the epicenter of Hershey. And so the fact that the players would stay there and be so open about, the community, seeing them and interacting with them was really a cool thing.
From 51 to 67, with the exception of 1964, Hershey Park Stadium was home, and as the season neared, the town would get to witness exhibition games involving the Birds and other regional teams.
At the end of the training camp, it was 3 weeks long. In the end, they always had a preseason game, and usually they played the Colts. A couple times they would play the Colts, and then later on would have another preseason game at the stadium, and the New York Giants were here among some other teams, so it was a really fun time to be living in Hershey.
But for as big of fans as they were of the team, the lasting memories for so many came off the gridiron.
We have many oral histories. The players were extremely kind and gracious with people in town. They often ate at the community building restaurant with the public. They played pool and handball with local kids in the community. It was a very big deal.
Fantastic. Well done, Alex. He'd fit right in with the 1950s press corps wearing that hat. Still to come, a former Eagles annual auction raises money for cancer. What it was like to run onto the field at Veterans Stadium when we return. Welcome back for our Thursday night flight. If you like sports memorabilia, there's a former Eagle you need to know about. Cedar Crest grad Tom Gerhart hosts a memorabilia auction every year in honor of his Eagles mom, Ann Gerhart, who passed away from cancer in the late 1990s. It's the 20th annual auction, but it will be virtual this year. Over $350,000 have been raised for local kids and families touched by cancer. It includes items from all major professional leagues, a lot of great stuff. For Gerhart, he understands everyone's path to the NFL is different. He was back and forth with the Birds several times in the 90s, and it's an experience he'll always cherish.
So I had the opportunity to play there 3 different stints, 3 different years. So I played in many preseason games, but only a few regular season games and postseason games. But running onto the field at the Vet was unbelievable.
And the auction runs next week. You can register and bid from Monday, October 26th through Friday the 30th at theannfund.com. FOX43Sports.com. Great work from Tom and some cool items to check out. We check in one more time with Andrew Callista in Philadelphia. I believe he's in between cheesesteaks and a soft pretzel right now.
Todd, what can I say? It's a Thursday night game here. They're fired up here at Xfinity Live. They're ready to get it on. Everybody wants a Birds win. No more one-win season. They want win number 2, and they feel they're going to get it tonight, boss.
All right, sounds good. Glad you guys are having fun out there. Thanks, Andrew. Eagles game plan coming up at 7, then pregame coverage on Fox 43 of the Eagles and Giants. For everyone involved in tonight's show, I'm Todd Sadowski. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday night flight. Enjoy the game.
And I put on the lights, and I put on the touchdown lights. Then I go over here, sound effects.